Breaking news. It sounds like Brandon Inniss is once again going to be Ohio State's punt returner when it takes the field against Minnesota on Saturday. Brandon Inniss actually had a pretty good punt return against Washington. The problem is he fumbled at the end of it, so it didn't matter. Washington got the ball back, but it didn't sound like Stefan that Ryan Day was going to be replacing him as the punt returner. In fact, he doubled down on the idea of if you just don't make a mistake, everything is fine.
Yeah, and it's kind of this balance you have to do of, as you mentioned, that was a good return, right? And the not the week before, the game before against Ohio, he had a pretty good return, and those are things that Ryan Day praised, that he liked what he saw from Brandon Inniss in the punt return game. But you have to balance that with the mistakes, whether it's not fielding a punt or fumbling or whatever it may be, right? Those were very obvious yards with the fumble. There's also been the hidden yards, things that we've talked about, and all that goes into that, and I think the confusing part a bit with Brandon Inniss and Ohio State kind of sticking with that in the punt return game is you have other options that you can at least try, right? Like, this is a good defense. They force a lot of punts, and we don't really see Ohio State try to do too many different things. We saw it early on, right? We saw Jeremiah Smith out there. We've seen Caleb Downs. We saw Bryson Rogers return a punt. And yet, when the biggest moments, it seems like they relied on Brandon Inniss instead of trying out some of these other things. Because I don't think experimentation is exclusive to Grambling State and Ohio. I think Ohio State's in a spot where even like this weekend against Minnesota, you can try out some different things because of the talent discrepancy between the two teams and the things you can overcome in order to still be able to come out on top. So I was a little surprised to hear the like really affirmative, like, we are sticking with Brandon Inniss. I'm not surprised to hear him say they trust Brandon Inniss. I get it. He has had some good plays, and if you think he can kind of overcome these mistakes and be a good player for you in the punt return game, I tend to agree, right? He's shown us that. But to be so confident instead of trying to maybe explore some other options, that's kind of a bit surprising to me, and I'm interested to see what that looks like against Minnesota.
I think there's a bigger special teams conversation altogether, right, Andrew? Because there's the Brandon Inniss, the punt return element of it. It's the fact that Jaden Philly had a couple of tackles on kickoff on Saturday, and Ryan Day was like, that's not good job, but no, you shouldn't be the guy making those tackles, right? They had a good one too, right? Washington faked a field goal, and Ohio State was ready for that. If you had to, two-part question, grade Ohio State special teams through 4 games, but then also, I don't know if it matters for Minnesota as much, but in big games, who should be Ohio State's punt returner?
That's loaded. That's big questions. I think I think to the first question, like, I'm at like a D plus, and the reasoning is because if C is average, I don't think they've been baseline. Don't screw it up, right? And like. You get it right, and like we're talking about returns, we're talking about, there's little stuff that you were kind of mentioning about, like, not feeling a punt, and all of a sudden it goes from the 17 to the 4, like, those 13 yards, those might matter because when you're at the 4 and the 17, you have to call different plays, blah 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 blah. So like there's those different things, but then there's the mistakes that everybody sees where it's like, hey, Washington just sprung a return and your kicker had to make a tackle. When your kicker has to make a tackle, it's kind of like catching rats in your house with like rat traps, right? It's like good that the trap worked, but you really don't want to have to be in that position in the first place. Exactly. Yeah. Why? Yeah. Exactly. Why do you need the rat trap? So let's take care of that problem first. So I think Ohio State, I'm at like a D plus because, again, you fumbled, you're giving up some returns. It's just not that great. And again, C is the baseline average. C is catch it and then walk off the field. C is you make the tackles. C is you don't let anybody spring a play, and then you're fine. And I think there are a lot of Ohio State fans that would be cool with fine right now on special teams. So that's my long-winded answer. Who should be the kick return or the kick and punt returner, or just
this punt, because they don't return kicks for touchdown. It is kind of what it is at this point. Just punt return in big games. So Penn State in a couple of weeks, the Michigan game playoff, who should be the punt returner?
I think it's Caleb Downs.
Is that because he's had punt returns for touchdowns the last 2 seasons with 2 different teams?
Yeah, and I think about this before, like, for those that listen to Buckeye Talk, like, I grew up in the D.C. area. I grew up a Washington fan, and they would always have these random punt returners, but whenever it was like the fourth quarter and it was a close game, who'd go back there? Santana Moss. They would put Santana Moss back there to return because it was like, you know what? Let's throw this guy back there. We need some juice. We need some speed. So I'm putting Caleb Downs back there in big moments. I'm actually cool with, having like a rotation almost at punt returner. If it's 21-0 on Minnesota, I don't know if you need to have Caleb Downs out there. But if you're playing Michigan, if you're playing Penn State, if you're playing somebody where the game is, not a blowout and it's in the second half and you maybe need a spark, okay, Caleb Downs.
You have another answer other than Caleb?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, cool. You should get the text, 614-350-3315. I was texting while Ryan Day was talking, and he broke down the special teams and who's handling it because they stopped having a special teams coordinator. And Andrew knows why. You know why they don't have a special teams coordinator anymore. So Parker Fleming lives. Rob Keyes is in charge of the entire special teams unit. He's the guy who mans it up.
Basically the special teams coordinator.
Without being one of the 10 assistants who gets to – yeah. Do you disagree that that's how they should handle it, though?
No, I don't disagree, but it's just funny.
He's – okay, fair. He's also in charge of the punt return. Nate Ebner, former Buckeye here, he's in charge of kick return. James Laurinaitis does the kickoffs. Matt Guerreri is in charge of punt. And Tyler Bowen is in charge of the field goal. So kudos to him because he's the guy who probably snuffed out the fake field goal that Washington was running. So that's who's in charge of everything. Aaron Scott had a pretty good kick.
I think he said Tyler Bowen's in charge of the kicked field goals. He said someone else was in charge of defending field goals. I can't remember who he mentioned.
A lot of cooks in the kitchen.
It was one of the support staff is in charge of that one. So, to Andrew's point, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. I agree with you. It's probably a D right now. It's also validity that nobody's perfect. Because the offense is elite. The offense is elite when it wants to be. The defense is elite all the time. Nobody's perfect at all for three phases. So it's something to work on. The question is it going to cost Ohio State a game one day? I don't know. Special teams is becoming more and more important because possessions are at a premium. Now Ohio State had 6 possessions on Saturday. So maybe not. I guess it depends on who you're playing. If you're playing Michigan, it might cost you the game. If you're playing Oregon as another high-tempo offense, it might not cost you the game. But I think special teams is a problem. But the question is, how big of a problem is it? And I think it just depends on the style of team you are playing and how much special teams is maybe a part of how they might attack you with some things. So, yes, get the text, 614. You got.
I was just going to say, too, on top of that, you have to – if you have a mistake or a flaw in one area, you have to be really good in the others. And when you pair shaky special teams with not great red zone conversions right now in terms of touchdowns, your possessions are ending in 3 points, and then you're also giving away possessions. It's to say is it going to lose in the game? Sure, Brandon Inniss fumbling might not lose you the game, but Brandon Inniss fumbling paired with you not scoring touchdowns on your red zone trips that against a better team like in Oregon or in Indiana or someone with a high-powered offense, that could be scary.
And that's why it's so important to figure out this offense quickly, while also getting that grade up with the special teams. Get the text 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Ohio State Big Ten home opener at night against Minnesota. Drake Lindsey versus Julian Sand will be there. See you after the game.